as we come out of the pandemic, where do you see the biggest problems that need solving, and how do you put your money to work to do that?
I don't think I've ever seen a more opportunity-rich environment as an investor than now. But that's because we face tremendous problems and challenges, and I think it stems from the fact that unwell people have always co-opted the tools of science and technology to do harm to others, whether it's setting fires or using a gun. But now those same people have access to tools and technology that literally create extinction level events, and I think we need to take that seriously. And there's a lot of opportunity to invest around it to address a major existential problem for humanity that I think is completely not understood or widely accepted.
So what do you mean when you say we face existential extinction level threats? That's obviously a very dramatic statement.
Let me give you an example. Canadian researchers recreated the horsepox virus using DNA and RNA sequences that they ordered through the mail, and for under $100,000, which was done years ago. That same experiment could be done for a lot less money and using technology that is readily available. A lot of it is available in high schools. To build a nuclear weapon takes a lot of people, a lot of scientific expertise, and is very difficult from an engineering perspective. To engineer a perfect virus is a lot easier. And if we think that there aren't people that will be motivated to do that, we're sadly fooling ourselves. And I don't think we are any better prepared for the next pandemic than we were for this one, unfortunately. And the fact of the matter is that this was the most benign and benevolent pandemic that you could imagine. So a lot of people died unnecessarily, and a lot of money has been spent, and most of it not well, to be honest. But a less than 1% mortality rate, if you compare that to SARS at about 10%, MERS at about 30%, and H5N1 flu at about 60%. If any of those were to catch hold in the same way with the same R0 values as COVID has had, you're looking at 20% mortality. Civilization shuts down. People don't go to work. The power grid shuts down, and we're in a lot of trouble. At 60%, I don't think that's necessarily recoverable from a humanity point of view. The world will be very different.
Okay. So that's obviously sounds terrifying, but, and maybe creating a virus is easier than building a nuclear weapon, but it's by no means easy, is it? I mean, it takes PhD level skills, resources that teenagers in high schools definitely don't have. And, maybe creating smallpox in a lab is one thing, but a deadly virus that could be used as a global bioweapon, isn't that something on a completely different scale?
I wish that were the case. 15 years ago, that would have been true. Now, that's not true. It is not technically difficult, and mistakes happen, by the way. So my guess is that there's a very good chance that the next pandemic, by the way, stems from something humans have done, whether intentionally or something escapes a lab, than something nature puts forward. There's a very good chance of that, and whether it's by mistake, there are many.
Bill, if that's the case, then why is it so hard to find patient zero, for example?
For with regard to COVID, well, in that case, I think that there's not clarity, let's say, on where this virus stemmed from, whether it came from a lab. There are many examples of level 5 biosecurity labs having leaks and accidents, or maybe something intentional. Or did it come from nature? But I think the Chinese government has been far less than cooperative or forthcoming about the origins of what we've faced.
Okay. So, given that this is your thesis, this is sort of where you're coming from, where do you see the next frontier of opportunities for investment in terms of putting your money to work to solve what you believe, are these big threats?
Yeah, and Doesn't sound like it, but I am an optimist, which is why I do what I do. And I think that if we make a serious and sustained effort to invest in defenses for these evolving threats, to paraphrase Rob Reed, that we stand a great chance of preventing or blunting the effects of the next pandemic. There are detection, diagnostics, antivirals, antibodies, vaccines, new diagnostics. There are a lot of ways to tackle what we face, and I'm optimistic that we can do it, and we should do it. Will we actually do it? That will take more than just me. That takes a will of humanity and society to really invest in detection, response and containment, treatment, vaccine development. And I am not seeing outside of the world that I exist in a global interest in those things, unfortunately. So
Now,
to answer
4
your
years
question,
ago, you said the sun.
Sorry, I was just going to say, to answer your question.
Okay. Let me ask my question,
Yeah,
and then
go ahead.
and then I think your answer will also apply to this question. You said 4 years ago that the sun is setting on the golden age of Silicon Valley. Where is the sun now?
Yeah, I think I was right about that. I think the sun has set in large part, and by that I mean the disruptive, fun, quirky companies that were challenging the established dynasties and monopolies are now seen in large part or portrayed as the kind of evil empires sucking up people's capital and private information and so forth. So that at least the public perception of that has really turned, and those companies that were up and comers are now the dominant incumbents who are eventually will be disrupted themselves.
So then let's talk about where the money goes, right? Like, you're obviously looking for companies that have a chance against the giants of today. Where are those opportunities?
Yeah, I think if you look at the top 5 or 10 largest companies today versus the 5 or 10 largest companies 15 years ago, 20 years ago, you'll see a pretty stark difference. There are a lot of companies like HP and Compaq and DEC and those who are seen as leaders. There's a lot of turnover in technology when it comes to leadership, and the cycles are fast enough that there will be a company that disrupts Google and Facebook and Amazon. It's just a matter of when and where they come from, and they're likely not big companies aren't not likely to disrupt themselves. And so I'm always looking for, on the technology side, the companies and the entrepreneurs who really have a vision to use their brains and technology as a lever to hopefully improve upon where we stand, whether it's from a healthcare perspective or from a technological perspective. Because frankly, I'm going to paraphrase David Sachs here. We are in a race between the acceleration of technological advancement in the world and the deterioration of our political and social systems. And I have not just faith, but a deep belief that technology can help us to address those problems. But it doesn't look great sometimes, and I think we need to kind of accelerate the pace of our investment in some of these areas.